Hi there everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to pose you guys a question. Are you guys sick of Minwu? Are you tired of getting killed by red mages or being held back by time mages? Does Aerith provide you with more salt than you need to survive? If the answer to any of these questions is yes, then I may well have the deck that's just for you, because I'm bringing you the biggest backup destroying deck that the current array of cards can provide for Final Fantasy. This isn't going to be like my previous builds that amplify like starter decks or anything like that. This is whole hog. We're going in with, we're assuming you have every card in the game, and this is going to be a deck that it could go to a tournament with. Before I go into the deck itself, I'm actually really excited because I get to tell you guys that I'm planning on going to the Square Enix headquarters on the 10th of December for their exclusive tournament in London, which I'm really looking forward to actually, because it means I can actually come and see people. So if anyone in the UK is headed to that tournament or in Europe or anything like that, then I'd really encourage you guys to come say hi, because it'd just be awesome to kind of see what everyone else is playing and I have a good day out. And I might even try and get people to go out after the event if it, time and money permits me to, or anything like that. So, I mean, if you see me or anything like that, definitely introduce yourself, because I promise I don't bite unless I'm asked to. As for the deck that I plan on playing for this tournament, well, I've had a fair few ideas bouncing around in my head, and I'm super busy over this next week because I'm running UFS Nationals over in Sheffield this weekend. But it means I don't have a huge amount of time to test or anything, but you guys will be sure to know when I eventually end up playing once the tournament's done, because I don't want to go handicapping myself now. However, that doesn't mean that I can't try and provide you guys with some awesome deck ideas that you're welcome to try out and change to your own liking. Everything that I say is completely opinion based, and you're welcome to disagree with me. In fact, I've had loads of people in the comments tell me they like my ideas but they want to change them, and you're more than welcome to do that too. I've tested the decks that I put up on YouTube because I want to provide a good amount of information and reasoning behind the cards that I put into these decks, but that doesn't mean that you necessarily have the same playstyle as me, so please just change these however you want to and let me know what you think. I may end up playing this deck after all because I actually really like this deck, but I guess I might end up having to play one of the other ones that I've listed, and if you wanted to strategize against me, well, I guess you'll just have to go and watch all my YouTube videos then, won't you? Getting on with this deck, I can tell you that there are 23 forwards, 21 backups, and only 6 summons, which is the lowest summon count I've had in any deck I've posted up on YouTube so far. But I'm going to jump straight into the cards so that I can give you some of my reasons behind the choices I've made. I'm going to jump straight in with the win cards this time, because there's less of them, but I'm going to display the entire deck list this time round so you can see which cards have the EX bursts, or you can screenshot the deck list so you don't have to hear me talking about it and harping on for the next 10 minutes if you don't want to. You will also notice that there are a lot less EX bursts in this deck, which is a bit of a con for this deck, but there's only 9 in here, but this is simply because neither Earth nor Wind have that many to write home about. But that doesn't change the fact that this deck is actually very powerful in the right hands. And you could have a couple more in here, like you could run the starter deck Valor if you wanted to, but I'm not the biggest fan of it because Minwu completely no-sells it, and despite the fact that this deck is designed to destroy cards like that, I don't want to play into it either. Now, you can see here with the win forwards that there aren't that many useful ones generically, and so I haven't played that many, save for Zidane and Yuffie, who are both potentially unblockable forwards who can edge out a game very quickly if left to their own devices. And, Zidane has the benefit of being untargetable, which, as I've said many times, he's extremely powerful. And rare Yuffie can scare off smaller guys who could block Zidane or herself or anything like that, and therefore they're just strong cards, so they're going in the deck. As for win backups, I've definitely gone with 3 copies of Aerith, which, in combination with cards like Vanille or Zidane, it makes it extremely unsafe for your opponent to attack you or play anything that targets your guys like Odin, or, in combination with her ability to play herself for free, makes 3 copies of her absolutely mandatory. If you're playing any kind of win deck, you just play 3 copies of Aerith, just enough said. Archer is one of the main focuses of this deck as something that can destroy backups. So it can destroy backups that Hecaton Care can't, like Red Mage and Time Mage, because it can target things that cost 3 or less, where Hecaton Care targets things that cost 3 or more. And it's also able to target Minwu, though Yargrosh can redirect Archer's destruction to himself, whereas he can't if you're using Hecaton Care. So bear that in mind. And we have a choice with the next cards with Dancer and Maria, primarily because they serve pretty much the same function. Giving all of your forwards, regardless of their element, an increase in power is a worthwhile choice in this game because card advantage doesn't work the same way as it does in games like Magic. Card advantage is generated by having your cheaper guys trade or straight out destroy something that costs more than them because of the way that resource management works in this game and having to discard cards. So say my 2-drop guy kills your 4-drop guy, that is a plus because you had to discard an extra card to destroy mine, whereas I didn't. And because of that, I definitely say that Maria is worth bearing in mind because it grants all of your forwards a power boost. However, Dancer costs less and has more kind of combat tricks than Maria does, purely because your opponent doesn't know when it's safe to move or anything, and she combos well with cards like Yuffie and Cecil, whereas Maria is just a straight up power boost. You might decide that you don't want to run them at all because there aren't that many good 2-drop cards in Wind, but if it were me, I would opt for a combination of 3 copies of these 2 cards. Wind summons are a bit of a pain, honestly, because they're its biggest letdown simply by having little to no EX burst cards worth playing. Alexander gets 2 slots in this deck because it can provide an advantage by taking out something that costs more than it does, like Lightning or Sephiroth, but it's not my favourite summon in the game, purely because there just aren't enough different forwards it can target. Legendary Fowler 4 rounds out the Wind cards with a single copy because he's one of 2 get out of jail free cards that I've put in this deck that can save you in an emergency, or as a clever play in combination with Tama so that you can have guys at the end of their turn so that you can attack them while they have no board. Though the biggest thing to bear in mind and not forget is if you are given priority or past priority to play a card like Valor 4 at the end of your opponent's main phase, it doesn't end their main phase like Magic does. So they do have an opportunity to play their cards again, which is why I feel that 1 copy of this card is enough, because any more than that and you're kind of making wasted slots. The Earth portion of this deck is the much meatier portion of this deck, and it was starting with a choice between Dark Knight Cecil and Rare Deleter. I adore both of these cards. I think they're both amazing, but there's only so much room. Cecil has 2 opportunities to be here because I think he's the perfect ward to fire aggro. It kills Hasty Tifa, it kills Onion Knight, and it also actually benefits you against Tidus combo as well, being able to deal damage to hit you repeatedly, because a character like Tidus will hit you multiple times, which means that he can't kill you because you'll kill him before he gets to you. Now, it's not ideal to be taking loads of damage, but because there's cards like Gobranth in this deck, it's not the worst thing either. However, Deleter has a massive number of combos in this deck. Deleter can sacrifice a guy that you want to play a second copy of, whether it be something like Kefka that you've already played, or Mustadio so you can kill another guy. The biggest combos with it, however, are Vanille and Kefka. If you use Kefka on a guy to give it plus 5k and then it dies at the end of the turn, and then you sacrifice it to Deleter anyway, you've just gained a really cheap cost 9k guy for nothing who can kill forwards that block him. And if you sacrifice Vanille, you get another one anyway. Put the 3 together and you end up with a monstrous combo. I've opted for 3 copies of Seraphy for 3 reasons. The first one is that it's an EX burst, of which there aren't very many in this deck, and so I wanted to kind of put as many in as I possibly could. The second reason is that I felt that the ability to pick up your kill conditions multiple times, like Gobranth, like Sephiroth, or you could pick up Shantotto even if you sacrificed it to Deleter, or if it got destroyed, it kind of just provides a plus. And the third reason is because it is the best turn 1 play that Earth can do. Discard a card to play Seraphy, and because your opponent doesn't have a break zone yet, you literally just pick up the card you just dropped, making her a free 6k guy, and that's really good. If you chose not to play Cecil in this slot because you chose Deleter first, I would choose to play Cecil here because, playing 1 less copy of Cecil isn't the worst thing, but if you chose to play Cecil in the first slot as a 3 of, I wouldn't play Deleter here because 2 copies of him doesn't cut it, because you kind of need to base things around him a bit more. And he has less ability, so you want as many copies of him as possible. Instead, I would opt for 2 copies of Guy, because Guy is a hard counter to ice strategies. So if you don't like ice, you don't like getting dulled, or your dulled guy's getting killed, play Guy, because he just stands in the way and there's nothing that they can do about it. So if you don't care too much about ice strategies, then play Deleter and Cecil instead of Cecil and Guy. A single copy of Gobranth can single-handedly steal a game from your opponent out of nowhere, particularly if they're damaging you, you're letting them hit you and Cecil's kind of burning them back, and then suddenly out of nowhere a Gobranth comes down, and short of Alexander there's not an awful lot of things that can kill him at full power. Having a 12k or more if you have power boost as attacker with Brave is scary, And then lastly, I opted for 2 copies of Gipple, well, primarily because I wanted to add to the EX cost, and he's not a bad card, but he does actually benefit you quite well because of Zidane and Yuffie having quite low power in comparison to your other guys. So in combination with your power boosters and him, it makes it so that Zidane is practically unblockable by anything, because anything that could block him will just die. I've opted for a single copy of Shantotto in the backup section here, but you may decide not to, because while she is the other kind of get out of jail free card in this deck, she is counterproductive to some of the strategies here, like Vanille, or generally you're wanting to build up lots of guys so that you can then Gipple and go for game. And, you know, you could decide that she perhaps costs too much. It's quite easy to take her out if you want to, but I quite like the card. If you aren't going to run her, then I would recommend either an extra 2-drop guy or a 3rd copy of Kefka, because Kefka is a monster in this deck. He does so much work. Zidane and Yuffie are not very powerful guys. They can get blocked by something like a Red 13, a Warrior of Light, all sorts of things that can just go, I don't care that you're there. Whereas if you have a Kefka there, whether they know that you're going to use it or not, you can use him in response to them declaring a blocker. So you just go, that's fine, my guy dies, but I have another one, your guy's going down with me. Not only that, but he has an amazing synergy with Vanille and Deleter. So you can just use him on something, smack your opponent with it, and then, oh, he's going to die anyway, oh, I'll just sacrifice it to Deleter. Or if you used it on a Vanille, you sacrifice the Vanille for a Deleter, and then you get another Vanille for doing it. Mustadio is probably the strongest EX burst in the deck because it outright kills a guy, but he costs 5, so he's not the greatest play. He's not that fantastic as a backup, but given that he has like an EX burst that's well worth running, I decided for 2 copies of Mustadio. And then Tama is just mandatory in any Earth deck. The amount of combat tricks that you can do with this card are crazy. Your opponent attacks you with a 6k guy, you go, cool, I'll flash in a Vanille. Because of the ability to kind of do it at instant speed or do it at any time, you can play a guy during your opponent's main phase. Yes, they'll get an opportunity to do something about it, but hopefully they'll have spent all their resources by then, so you then have a Zidane that you can go, oh, now I don't have to wait until next turn to attack you with him, I'll just smack you with him now. It's kind of like giving them haste. Black Belt is my favoured 2-drop guy other than Tama, because I think that the ability to boost power kind of works here in combination with Dancer, Maria, Yuffie, all these cards that kind of just say, oh, I'm just that little bit bigger than you. Because I think that that's actually a really prominent strategy in this game, is just making your guys that little bit stronger than theirs so that you just kill theirs and they don't do it back. And then the last card on the backups front, I decided to go with 1 copy of Enna Crow. Now, you may decide that you want another 2-drop here again, but I think that having Maria and Enna Crow out at the same time, or a Dancer Maria and Enna Crow out at the same time, makes your guys monstrous. Having a, Vanille becomes a 9k attacking, multi-accented, I mean, seriously, where has her accent come from? I don't know to this day. Don't know if she's English, Australian, American, or what, but she's a monster in this deck. If you've boosted her power, she just gets crazy. Deleter becomes 11k, Cecil becomes practically immovable. You just have so many options, and then you play Gipple, and then your guys are just unstoppable. And then another reason that I'm going with this deck in particular is because of Hecaton Care. Hecaton Care has 2 uses in this deck, and one of them is the primary function, which is to destroy any backup that costs 3 or more. And one of the things that you definitely want to be destroying with this card isn't actually Minwu, it's 5-drop Yuna, because Yuna can screw over a lot of your strategies here because she stops all of your cards going to break zone, they get removed from the game instead, meaning it shuts off Vanille, and you'll have a lot less targets to search for with Seraphie. However, the fact that you're playing Archer and Sephiroth as well means you don't necessarily have to have Hecaton Care out. You could always discard your Vanilles for costs. So if you need the Hecaton Cares, then discard Vanilles. If you need Vanille because you want to push, then you can discard other things and leave the Hecaton Cares in the deck. Because it's a good part of the deck that you kind of just have this guy that just keeps coming back and has loads of synergies with Seraphie and Deleter. There's so many things that she can do in this deck. She is not to be underestimated. I overlooked her when I first thought of this set, and I regret it, honestly. And then finally, for the dark cards, we go with a copy of Chaos, because you always go with a copy of Chaos if you're running more than 1 colour, because there's absolutely no reason to, and a single copy of Sephiroth. Now, I've had so many comments on my videos saying, Sephiroth is overcosted, and do you know what? He is. but he's monstrous when he hits the board. He is terrifying, and if your opponent's playing water, he is their worst nightmare, because their way of killing him is putting him back in your hand. Now, destroying your opponent's backups and getting a guy, especially with First Strike, is actually an extraordinary play despite his cost. You are playing cards that can kind of get around that as well. You're playing your Aerith, so you're getting free guys. You're playing Valor 4, so you could always pay for him with your other guys if you don't need them anymore. It's just your opponent has to deal with him. He is a card that your opponent cannot ignore, especially if you start getting cards like Maria, Dancer, etc. Your opponent has to deal with Sephiroth, or he's just an ultimate blocker for you. I did think about putting Prish in this deck as an ultimate blocker, but it's just another high cost guy, and Sephiroth only takes one slot in your deck, and that's a very important thing to note. Something else I've decided to go with kind of these deck lists and stuff is that I wanted to list a pros and cons approach so that I can explain what things were stronger with this deck and what weaknesses I found when I was testing it. Now, to go into the pros, because I want you guys to play this deck, I'm going to tell you what's good about it, is that it's very heavy on backup destruction. So, as I said at the beginning of the video, all these cards that you're sick of, I die to Red Mage, I die to Minwu, you will never have to deal with that in this deck. Because you just destroy them. The second you see something you don't like, you just go, nope, and you get rid of it. And then the next thing is that your guys are generally above the curve on their power. They're really, really strong. Seraphie is 6k for a 2-drop. Deleter is 9k for a 3-drop. It's like, that's scary. Zidane and Yuffie are weak for their cost, but they have a reason to be. Whereas most of your Earth guys, late game you get a Gabranth down, you'll probably win. Sephiroth, yes, he's high costing, but once you get him down, you'll probably win. And then the next thing is that your forwards are generally very hard to remove. Zidane, it cannot be targeted. Vanille, you kill her, she comes back. This Seraphie picks up your guys. You find you have this consistent flow of guys that just keep coming backwards and forwards all the time, and that way you never quite run out of cards. And destroying their backups mean that you should outpace them in terms of card advantage. It plays to Sephiroth's strengths as well, because, as I said earlier, with things like Aerith and Seraphie, you're constantly regenerating your resources so that you can play Sephiroth without having to be too afraid of his cost. And then the one thing I did notice, and it's something that's a very popular deck right now, is that it has a very positive matchup against Wind Water Final Fantasy X decks. Because, having tested against them, Tidus Combo and YRP decks are a pain in the butt, and being able to destroy the Yunas in their back row is a very, very strong play. And not only that, because if you play Cecil, you have a really good strong counter to Tidus, you have really strong counters to Pain, and your guys are just generally bigger than theirs. The biggest thing about Riku is that she's too big for you to deal with, whereas if you slap down a Gabranth or you slap down a Kefka, she can't do anything to you. The main weaknesses of this deck are that there are fewer EX bursts than most decks. This is a weakness, yes, but it's not the end of the world. EX bursts are meant to be a bonus effect that you get, and it's generally more in strategy with like water decks or lightning decks and things like that, so that you can kind of manipulate what you're going to get with things like the water Geomancer backup, because EX bursts are a bonus. They shouldn't be seen as, I build my deck around this. Fire has a lot of good backup EX bursts like Rain and Zangan and stuff like that search and let you plus. But this deck doesn't do that because it pluses by you playing cards, not getting smacked. So while you want to take damage for the benefits of things like Gabranth, you probably won't get that many EX bursts off through the course of the game. The other weakness of this deck is that a lot of the guys in this deck are quite high costing. You are trying to mitigate that with things like Aerith and Tama, etc. You and Seraphie, but Shantotto costs 7, Gabranth costs 6, Sephiroth costs 8. You might find that you don't like the number of high-costing guys in this deck, but if you don't like it, it is quite easily changeable. Change Shantotto out. Change Sephiroth out if you're really adamant that you think he's not very good. There are other backup destroyers in the deck. But I wanted to build this deck so that there were as many backup destroying cards as possible, and I feel that all 3 of the cards that can do that are good cards. So if you disagree with me, then feel free to change it. The other thing is that it is quite susceptible to Squall. Now, ice decks aren't the most prevalent thing in the game at the moment. If you're scared of Squall, then I would definitely suggest playing Guy over Deleter, or Cecil. If you fancy playing Deleter and Guy instead of Deleter and Cecil, etc., then that works too. Guy is a massive counter to ice decks, and if ice decks are what you're scared of, then you can get around them that way. Although small and strong forwards can be a pain in the butt, especially ones that can give themselves first strike, which is why I pinpointed Squall in particular, because Kefka doesn't save you from them. Kefka can save you from most things, but if Squall has his S ability go off, your guy is just going to die, and that's a pain in the butt. So you just kind of have to hope that he doesn't attack you, because Squall is generally a blocker, not an attacker, but your opponent may make a misplay, you need to capitalise on that. And that's it for this deck list, and as I said, if you guys are about at this London tournament in a couple of weeks, it would be so awesome to come and meet some of you guys and maybe talk about what you guys are playing, and then I can give you some of the ideas that I've had in person, and it would just be really awesome to meet people. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel and leave a like on the video, share it out to people who might want to play this deck and do something a bit different. And as I said, if you're really sick of the backups in this game and you want something to get around them, this deck should probably be for you. So thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye now.